Alrighty, so the state of Kansas says by the 8th grade you should know how in the United States we make a bill. So many of you sing Schoolhouse Rock, I'm just a bill. I'm going to figure it out one of these times. Okay, so the most important things in lawmaking will be... Here we go. The United States Senate, we live in a bicameral legislation, which means we have two separate houses which are controlled by a judicial review. So the other house will be the House of Representatives. Following that, there's our Capitol Hill, and after all that, we actually have a judicial review, which means that a higher court has the power to overturn a lower court. So the most important step in the judicial review will be the United States Supreme Court. Okay, so by 8th grade you should be able to tell me what all of these words are. So instead of making them all come up, if you just want to shout them out, that's great with me. So in the United States, a bill can be introduced by anyone in Congress, because in Congress, the people up there are our what? This is your word bank. You've got constituents, bill, discussions, amendments, elected officials, representatives, Senate. A bill can be introduced by anyone in Congress. Who is in Congress? Elected officials. There we go. So what happens is people can lobby their congressman, man or woman, to present a bill impacting their lives to the rest of Congress, because we are their what? What are the people that elect them called? Constituents. And as a constituent, you own that right to vote and elect who gets to make your laws. So the first draft of the what is introduced any time in the House of Representatives. A bill. It is not yet a law. Okay, so after a bill is introduced, it is introduced into the first half of our legislation, which has to be the House of... The House of Representatives is based solely on population, because when the United States was beginning, New Jersey was upset that they were only going to have so many people, whereas Texas and other states would have a lot more representation to control our government. So when the bill appears on the docket, which is what the House goes through, it is assigned to a committee immediately, because it's only been written by one or two representatives and their constituents, so we don't really know if how it's going to impact the American people. So the committee has the right to kill the bill by not discussing it. They don't ever actually have to look at it. They just put it low enough on the docket that it never appears. Or they have the right to amend it with markups. And what this means is they just go through and change what they think should be changed. So when it returns, it is ready for the House to discuss. So what happens is it's put on the open floor and anyone can stand up and talk about it. People have the right to come in and talk for it or against it. So after the debate, the Speaker of the House can call for a vote. With the majority vote, the bill will continue on its journey to the Senate, which is the other house. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for the Senate. So before the Senate even actually sees the bill, it is sent to a nonpartisan office for something that concerns all of you. And basically, if that's going to impact our lives, then we need to know where the money is coming from. So the nonpartisan office for budget. Estimates. So after the dollar amount is introduced and cleared, it's sent on to the Senate. The Senate immediately sends it to just like the House. It immediately goes to a committee because they don't know what will impact them. There we go. Which is followed by, during committee, it is followed by public hearings. And with that, once it comes to the Senate floor, they want to know if they can vote right away. Because you're given an X amount of time that you can discuss this, even with a filibuster. So when it's described by a public hearing, people have the right to come in and lobby for it. People have the right to come in and say, well, this impacted me personally, and this is why it should go into action. Just like it says, because constituents have the right. So in committee markup, the bill is finalized and sent to the floor. However, it can be filibustered, and what happens is a senator has the right to maintain the floor for as long as he wants. And it takes 60% of the votes on the floor to end the filibuster, and that's not even voting on the bill. Okay, so the bill is either, what can you do on the floor? If you want to change it, if it's not exactly how you want, it's amended. It's amended to fit the rights of the American people and is sent back to the House of Representatives, because if one side changes it, the other side needs to have the right to fight back. Although that's not how our government should be, it's how it is. I don't know why they're grouped together. Now they're all grouped together, that's not good. Okay. So when the House gets it back and says, okay, that makes sense, let's vote. So they vote, and it gets sent back to the Senate. So if there are no other amendments than a joint committee between the Senate and the House, they come together in front of the public, and they say, okay, this is what we've got. Everybody agrees. It is sent to the President, who is the final step in the process. Now the President has the right to do, what is a veto? It's saying no with a reason. The President can also, and when he signs it, it immediately becomes a law. Bada bing, bada boom, there we are. And his last option is to ignore it. Now why can he ignore it? What happens after he ignores it?
Is it go back to the committee?
No.
Well, it's good.
It becomes a law immediately. After Congress is out of session for 90 days, it's enacted in a law. Now after this, what you can actually do is anyone has the right to challenge this, okay? So even though it is a law, it doesn't mean it's constitutional, it doesn't mean it's right. So people have the right to take it to their local court, follow the chain of command, and essentially take it up to the Supreme Court, where it can be overruled and ruled unconstitutional. So with all this being said, this is a pretty intense map. We can take it I can take you through it, but it makes no sense. But essentially, the biggest parts of it that I really want to emphasize are that all of this starts with an idea. And it starts essentially with the people. You have the right to say whatever you want. You have the right to sway the government however you want, because that's your right as a constituent. That's why you put these people in office. And even though it says bill right here, it's actually an idea. It's not even set in motion yet. It's still just on your thought. So when it goes to the first step of legislation, like I said, the House, it's sent to the committee. I didn't justify how much work the committee does. Everything that's put in Congress, so many people, just like 6 or 7 people, have spent countless hours working on. And then it sits on the calendar for ungodly amounts of time, and it can kill on the Senate or the House calendar. The biggest step in all of this is this step right here. And that's after the House and the Senate have both seen it, and it goes back to the House, and it goes back to the Senate, and it goes back to committee. So essentially most of these bills, 85% of these bills will never actually become laws because of the amount of work they take. But now, it's there to help your life, and it's there to make your life better. And now the bill's a law.